thank you everybody for taking the time out of your morning to join us for this Habitat Stewards mapping workshop today. Paige and I have been working on this for a couple of months, and we're really excited to share this with you and to have Sarah Forbes be joining us today to share about the CRD Atlas. Sarah, you can wave, yeah, that's great. And Alyssa Purse will be joining us as well today from the BC Wildlife Federation, as well as Ian and Kim from the Bilston Watershed Protection Association. So thank you everybody for coming.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. So I'm going to start with a nice colorful slide here about the territories that surround us. And we do, you know, as we all want to acknowledge, but especially HAT and CRD staff as your hosts today, humbly acknowledge that we do live and work on the territories of both the Coast Salish and the Chalmouth peoples. So on the peninsula, if you're familiar and located here in the Greater Victoria area, we have the Wasanich people known today as the Sartlip, the Paquachin, Sayout, Sakum, and Malahat. And then in the core area of what is often known as Victoria, we have the Lekwungen people, and that includes the Esquimalt and Songhees nations, and you can see them on the map on the tip of the island there, Southern Vancouver Island. And then to the west, we have the Chiana, the Suk, and the Pachidat First Nations. And there are many other First Nations who also have ties to this region stretching back long before European settlers arrived, and that includes the Chemainus, the Cowichan, Halalt, Lake Cowichan, the Axon, Penelakut, Tawasin, and Semahu. And we want to just also recognize that these communities are the original stewards of the lands, waters, and sky around us and continue to be stewards to this day. So we actually found this map. I was introduced to this mapping program a while ago, and I hope a few of you have explored it already. But if you have not, you can visit it. It's native-land.ca, and it goes through the territories, the languages, and the treaties of the different Indigenous communities. I think it goes across North America, and it's just a great way to explore some of those and really visualize the overlapping territories that exist in the Greater Victoria area. So, okay. So we want to thank our amazing funders and partners for making this workshop possible for you today. First and foremost, we want to thank the CRD and as an amazing co-host, as well as BCWF, the BC Wildlife Federation, especially the Wetlands Education Program where Alyssa is focused. Alyssa will be talking further about that today. We wrote down Bilston Peeps. They don't quite have an exact logo, but that means we're going to be talking about them later. And so you'll learn more about the Bilston Watershed Group. And then our funders, our primary funders are HCTF, Habitat Conservation Trust Foundation, EcoAction, Community Fund, and Metchosin Foundation. So thank you all. That's how it was free to all of you participants today. So just to introduce the two of us, if you didn't know, my name is Paige Erickson McGee, and I'm Stewardship Coordinator with HAT. We've got our bios up there, so you're welcome to read those. But I also wanted to introduce Sarah Lax, and it will be the co-host with HAT here, and she's our conservation technician. We've both loved maps for a long time, have sort of done education and training, but also just a personal interest in mapping. And we're really excited that so many of you share this interest as well. And I did want to let you folks know that we are going to be recording this, and we'll have a recording of it available afterwards, so you can get a copy of it. And then we'll also have the slideshow as a PDF available as well. So a couple opportunities for that. But if you have any questions for either of us, we will provide our contact info at the end. And we are going to then introduce Sarah Forbes. We're so excited that Sarah could carve some time out of her busy schedule as CRD's geospatial department specialist. As you can see, worked for many years now in sort of ecological data, planning, conservation, and brings a wealth of knowledge, especially about the CRD Atlas. And we are going to be having a special section of this whole webinar. It's going to be dedicated to Sarah teaching us a bit more about the tools that are available through the CRD Atlas, and as well as just how to explore some of the features and layers on that platform that is free and available to anyone in the region with an internet connection. So it's a wonderful platform, and we're really thrilled to have Sarah join us today. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah, do you mind waving to the camera there? Thank you. So you can see Sarah there. And then we're also thrilled to have Alyssa Pertz here from BC Wildlife Federation. Alyssa, do you mind waving? Yay! Thanks, Alyssa. And we are, both Sarah and I are kind of fangirls of the wetlands education program, because we both took several of the courses through the Wetland Keepers, and I've done the Wetlands Institute program as well, and they are absolutely fantastic online course hosts. They're interesting and engaging, and they do all kinds of amazing programming there. So it's definitely worth taking a look on their website or contacting Alyssa for more information. And they have, she's going to talk a little bit more later about what is coming up, including in our region. So lots of learning to be had. And then I did want to also mention the Bilston peeps, as I wrote on the slide there. That means, you know, we've got these fantastic habitat stewards who have been working in the Bilston watershed, encouraging and beyond, encouraging stewardship by landowners and creating amazing resources for our community. And so we've got, we're hoping to have both Ian McKenzie and Kim Hill here today. And if they're here, they can always wave at the screen. And they have both dedicated a huge amount of time to environmental stewardship in that watershed. And we also wanted to recognize Dale Hitchcock, who's the artist. Oh, there's Ian, he's got his hand up there. Thank you, Ian. And Dale Hitchcock, who's the artist of this fantastic map, and other brochures as well that we'll get into later in the presentation. So thank you, Bilston folks, for coming today, and we're going to hear from them as well about some of their initiatives and just the latest on what they hope to see in the future of Bilston. So now we're going to get started on some of the content. Was there anything, Sarah, that you wanted to touch base on before we look at our agenda?
I think that's good, Paige. Thanks so much for taking that into account. Great.
So just a reminder as we get into the the agenda, I just wanted to touch base on if you have any issues with tech support, we have our wonderful coworker, Rana. So if you have tech questions or issues, you can just message into the chat if you can find it, or put up your little hand icon, or just wave frantically, and Rana will try to do her best to see and locate you. But Rana is our outreach coordinator and our back coordinator, and just all around amazing individual to help us out. We're so lucky to have her, and we did also want to say this is a casual workshop. This is not, you know, a formal, got to put your suit and tie on workshop. And that's the little drawing there is, you know, sometimes you'll have your camera off, and sometimes you need to get up and get a snack or a coffee refill, and that's totally okay. There are some interactive portions that are towards the end of the workshop, and that's when Sarah Forbes will be doing some of those demonstrations. So that's going to be at, Sarah's at 11:10.
12:30 to, 11:30 to 12:10. So if you can be present for that section of time the most, that will be great, because we're going to be making little breakout groups for all of you to learn about the CRD Atlas and actually get to use it a little bit together, and think critically about some of these maps that we've created for you for discussions.
Nice. So we're going to ease you into it this morning, learn a little bit about mapping in general and HAT and stewardship for the first part until about 11, and then we're going to get into those demos and the hands-on work. So to start out, we're going to hear from Alyssa from BCWF about wetlands and the speaker series, and how that, you know, that's a great example of stewardship. And then we're going to get into an introduction to mapping, then we'll have a break, and then we'll dive into Stewardship Mapping 101, which really talks about the context of the stewardship program we have at HAT called Good Neighbours, and details about that and what it means to be a citizen scientist and a geographer, how you can incorporate that at home. And then we're going to have another break, and then dive into the demos. And then after our demo about Google My Maps and the CRD Atlas, we're going to touch base with the Bilston Watershed Stewards and have a little discussion about some of their lessons learned. And then to wrap up, we're going to do moving forward ideas and questions. But if you do have questions in terms of the content, you can enter them in the chat, and we'll do our best to incorporate them as best we can throughout. So we'll try and make sure to make time for that, but we'll definitely have a dedicated question and discussion at the end. Okay, so we are going to, oops, sorry. So, Sarah, do you want to hop in and chat about this?
Yeah, so just before we get started in some of the presentation pieces, we want to really make this workshop as interactive as we can. And so to get a little bit of an idea of where people are coming from, how stewardship mapping might be useful in your daily life or your work, we wanted to include some sticky note questionnaires as we go along. For you to participate and share with the other people in this group, because there are about 35 of us, and nice to get to know each other a little bit. So we will include this link in the chat here. And with this link in the chat, which Rana just shared, if you can open that up on your computer, Paige will keep sharing her screen so we can all see everybody editing together. But if you want to just write a little note on one of those stickies about what do you hope to get out of this workshop. And when you open that up, you can see everyone will be editing it at once, but feel free to just check one little sticky and write something on there. And if you have any issues, feel free to write on the chat too. Great. So maybe, oh, I think what's happening is it isn't refreshing on Paige's screen, but I can see everybody writing on here. Let's see.
Want to share your screen then, Sarah?
Yeah, I'll share my screen.
Yay.
Yay.
Okay.
Great. So you can see here, let me know if you can't see it. Just loading here. But everybody's making notes. We've got sensitive areas, particularly keen to look at, learning about ecosystem mapping and how I can use it in my environmental studies, grade 12 and grade 11 class. Learn about direct access to layered data from the CRD's ArcGIS servers. So we've got a nice wide range of what people are hoping to get out of this workshop. This is great. And feel free to keep adding to that throughout the workshop too, if you think of other things. It's great to have these kinds of feedback as we go, and it helps us if we want to create another one of these presentations in the future, if there's interest. Great. So Paige, do you want to go back there? Let's just see.
Yes, I will. Okay. And we've got, oh, it's so nice to see all the faces.
Yeah, so many familiar faces too, and new faces. This is great.
Okay. So we did our little activity, and now we're going to, oops, on into a little bit of an update from Alyssa on wetlands. Okay, Alyssa, are you ready to share with us?
Yeah, I can share my screen.
Great.
So I think you'll just have to unshare your screen so I could share mine. All right, here. Are you guys able to see that? I'll just present.
Yes, it's just loading, but I saw it there. Yes, perfect.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Sarah and Paige, for inviting me here today. I promise that I did not ask Paige to say all those nice things about our program. We did not pay her to say those things. It's so great having partnering organizations where we're all on the same page and can all be, sharing the same message. So I'm very grateful to be here today. And basically what I'm going to talk to you about very quickly is wetlands. So wetlands are a bit of a mystery, and they don't have to be. So I'm just going to talk quickly about wetlands are not wastelands. Oh, there we go. So I'm going to explain to you why wetlands are so awesome. Unfortunately, they are disappearing, and I'm going to touch base on some of the reasons why that's happening. And then I'm going to talk about what you can help do about it. So just before we start, as Paige mentioned, I am the program coordinator for the Wetlands Education Program at the BC Wildlife Federation's Wetlands Education Program. I've been with them for about 2 years now. I have a background in a Bachelor's of Science in Ecological Restoration from BCIT and a technical diploma in Environmental Protection and Sampling from KPU. So I didn't actually know much about wetlands before I started this job, but they are awesome. And I'm going to tell you why. But first of all, what exactly are wetlands? Not a lot of people can really define it. So in a Cliff's Notes version, I'm going to go through this pretty quick. So wetlands are made up of 3 primary ingredients. So obviously they have water. So water is on the landscape for a portion or all of the year. So we can have seasonal wetlands, and even though water's not in them for the entire year, they are still considered wetlands. Wetlands are characterized by having plants that are specifically adapted to live in waterlogged areas. And wetlands also have soils that have been chemically altered by waterlogged conditions or being submerged in water for extended periods of time. So if you have these 3 ingredients, you are in a wetland. There are 5 types of wetlands within BC. I'm not going to go much farther into this, but if you'd like to know this more in depth, you're more than welcome to come join us at one of our workshops. So the 5 types we find in BC are marsh, swamp, open water, bog, and fen. And a lot of people who have heard about wetlands didn't know that there was even so many different kinds. So don't take my word for it that wetlands are awesome. There's a number of animals that can also vouch for it. There are several species of wildlife that need wetlands to support them in their lifestyle or their habitat needs, such as rearing their young, breeding, collecting food or eating food, shelter, security cover. There's just so many aspects of wetlands that are very important. And Neil, who used to be the manager of the Wetlands Program and is now the manager of Conservation Stewardship at BCWF, he likes to say that wetlands are nature's supermarket. So this is just an indication of how important wetlands are. This is a wetland that we restored in northern BC, and this photo was taken in a 1 meter by 1 meter square plot about 1 week after the restoration was done. And there's at least 4 different animals prints that are found in this, visiting the wetland just under a week after it was built. So that just goes to show, like, if you build it, they will come, they need these things, they want them on the landscape. In fact, about 1/3 of the species at risk that are found in British Columbia need wetlands for at least part of their life cycle. So they're really, really important for wildlife. Wetlands have also been considered the kidneys of the earth because of the velocity of the water, the types of sediment, as well as the types of plants that we're finding in wetlands. They really help filter the water out. Wetlands are also been considered sponges on the earth. So what they do is they hold and trap water on the landscape, and then they slowly release it back into the aquifer or the groundwater system. So acting like a giant sponge. They can really significantly help with flooding events. So when you're seeing communities that have had impacts due to flooding, a lot of the time you'll notice that they no longer have natural wetlands on their landscape, or the wetlands have been degraded or seriously impacted, including floodplains. So floodplains along river systems are considered wetlands as well. Wetlands are also awesome at sequestering carbon. So as we all know, plants need carbon dioxide for their photosynthesis process to create sugars and food. And what happens with wetland plants is as they die, the plant gets sunk to the bottom and then buried by the soil and the substrate of the wetland, and the carbon is actually sequestered into the soil. So that's a really neat aspect of some types of wetlands. And they've also historically been really culturally important for a number of Indigenous communities. There's so many archaeological artifacts indicating that wetlands have been super important throughout the ages for Indigenous communities. And we do know to this day that they're still very culturally important. They were a significant source of food, supplies, and medicine for Indigenous communities. Wetlands are also really important for food security on a larger global scale. A number of plant and animal species require wetlands to exist or to grow or thrive. Rice paddies are a really significant example of a food source that's needing wetlands. And this rice feeds millions of people all throughout the world. Wetlands are also super important for our well-being. They're great places to explore, a great place to view wildlife, to do some birding, to canoe or kayak around. You can go fishing. There's lots of opportunities to get out and explore wetlands and just enjoy nature. So not only do wetlands provide all the services that I just spoke about, there's a whole slew of other services that they provide essentially for free. So it's really in our best interest to protect them. And so in sum, wetlands are awesome, except they're disappearing. So this is a map of the lower mainland of British Columbia, and even this map is a little outdated because it's from 1997. So the light blue areas are all the areas where wetlands used to be on the landscape, and this is where wetlands are now. So the purple is the tidal wetlands, so salt water influenced by the tide, and the red is freshwater wetlands. As you can see, both have been significantly reduced, and this is just in one area of British Columbia. So all over the world, since the 1900s, 64% of wetlands have been lost, and half of this loss has occurred in the past 50 years. In Canada specifically, 70% of our wetlands have been lost or degraded, and in British Columbia, up to 85% of wetlands have been lost in regions, usually in areas that are highly populated. People like to live where wetlands used to be. So what's going on? Why are we losing our wetlands? What's happening to them? Well, we're draining them. We're draining them to form roads, buildings, towns. We're draining them to create agricultural land. And once they're being drained, they're not being restored and being put back on the landscape, causing this imbalance of wetlands on the land and imbalance of water security. Harvesting can do a number on wetlands. So when we're harvesting peat, obviously that's directly damaging a peatland or a type of wetland. And when we harvest trees as well, that can cause adverse changes to the hydrology of the watershed. When the trees are no longer there, water can just slough off the hillside and not soak into the ground. Our wetlands are also getting polluted. There's fertilizer and stormwater runoff from nearby farms and cities. And we're noticing a lot of problems with invasive plants and animals. So this picture is of an American bullfrog, and it's actually eating a bird. So they're so big and they grow so fast that they eat everything in sight. Another really prominent invasive species is a type of grass called Recanary Grass that unfortunately is still being sold in the agricultural industry to feed forage as a forage crop for cattle, even though we know that it's causing a lot of havoc on our wetlands. Another huge issue is being caused directly by us. And unfortunately, because of lack of education or awareness, a lot of people destroy wetlands when they're recreating or mud bogging. So when you drive through a wetland, it compacts the soil, it destroys the vegetation, and you actually could kill a lot of the animals that are in the wetlands. This could be amphibians, this could be nesting birds. And once those ruts or grooves are formed, they can't repair themselves. So it's just kind of like this permanent scar on the wetland. Ranching has also played a huge part in causing havoc on our wetlands. So as cattle have free access to these wetlands as watering holes, they overeat the wetland plants, so they overbrowse it. So there's no longer vegetation available for native species. Then walking along the edges of the wetland cause really significant soil compaction, which sometimes doesn't allow the water to seep up from the groundwater table. So these wetlands can disappear. And as they're eating and hanging out near these wetlands, they're going to the bathroom. So all of the manure can cause these large algal blooms in these wetlands, which essentially create a very anoxic or poor habitat for wildlife. But not all is lost. There are people that care about wetlands and are trying to spread the good word about them, and BC Wildlife is one of them. So the purpose of the Wetlands Education Program with the BC Wildlife Federation is to raise awareness about the importance of wetlands and really build stewardship among communities so people are able to take care of the wetlands in their own backyards. We've been doing this since 1996 through educational workshops. So in 1996, we partnered with the government of British Columbia and we formed the Wetland Keepers, which is similar to Stream Keepers training, but it's morphed over the years. In 1998, we integrated the Wetlands Institute, which is a 7-day hands-on intensive course. And in 2000, we started doing our Map Our Marshes training. We've also hosted other workshops, like specifically for wetland restoration, working group sessions to brainstorm with community groups and municipalities. And we've hosted a number of specialty workshops like QGIS, eDNA, and macroinvertebrates. We've also been working on wetland projects. We've been doing restoration projects or restoring wetlands since 2014. And we've been doing mapping projects, community mapping projects since 2015. So recently we actually partnered with the province and a coalition of First Nations and community groups in the Skeena region to create a comprehensive wetland health assessment tool. And we've also been doing contracts. So in 2019 and 2020, we were contracted by the provincial government to create a health assessment tool for wetlands that were being impacted by the forestry industry. So that's all fine and well, but what can you as a citizen do to help wetlands? Well, the best way to protect something is to care about it, and people don't care about things that they don't understand. So the best way to understand something is to go out and explore. So literally throw on a pair of gumboots, grab a little dip net, grab a bucket, and just go out and see what you can see. They're amazing places to explore. If you sit still for a little while, there's so much wildlife you can see. There's bird species, there's invertebrates, there's bugs. If you're really lucky, you might see a large mammal or even a small mammal swimming about. Muskrats love wetlands. Beavers live in wetlands. So there's tons of opportunities to explore wetlands. And you can also go to a workshop. So BCWF has 2 workshops coming up in the Vancouver Island region. So in the summer, we are partnering with the Habitat Acquisition Trust to host a Wetland Keepers workshop. This is a 2.5-day workshop in wetland stewardship, classification, and mapping. We haven't set the date quite yet for that. And in the fall, we are going to be hosting our Wetlands Institute on Galiona Island and the Comox Valley. So this is a 7-day workshop for wetland practitioners. So participants are urged to have a project in mind when they apply for a spot. And because of COVID restrictions, we do have limited seating. We've had reduced capacity. So I just did want to mention that these workshops, if all goes as planned, are going to be a hybridized version of virtual and in person. So all of our classroom sections will be held virtually, and then our in-person sessions will be our hands-on field sessions, and they will have strict COVID safety guidelines. If you want to know more about these workshops, when they're happening, how to register, when they're going to occur, I do urge you to join our mailing list. So it can be found on our website at bcwf.bc.ca/wetlands-program. And then if you go down to the bottom, connect with us, you can join our mailing list. And just as a final reminder is that we are all in this together. I know sometimes it can seem pretty daunting. It seems that, you know, as one person, what can I do? This seems like a policy change problem. But I just want to remind you that a group of passionate people who have a little bit of knowledge and are loud enough can make a huge, huge difference. And this affects us all. This affects us now. This affects our children. This affects future generations. So it's never been more important than now to get together and really raise our voices in protection of these areas. And if you have any questions, you are welcome to ask me now, or you can email me later. I'll just stop sharing.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Alyssa. And if you have questions, you're welcome to pop them in the chat. And I love the comments we're getting as well. Well, that is so fantastic. Thanks again. And I also can't say enough good things about the Wetlands Institute, especially because of all the field experience that I gained, and learning also from fellow Wetland Institute participants. It was a really nice way to kind of get to know what else is going on across BC. Okay, so now we're going to continue on with our presentation. And I'm going to share my screen for you all again so we can be on the same page, no pun intended. Okay. So I see a loading screen. I don't know about you. Okay, here we go. So thanks again, Alyssa. And Sarah is going to jump in and talk a little bit about the power of maps.
Thanks, Paige. So a little bit about just a background on maps. And I like to think in quotes. I think understanding where our knowledge of these things comes from and how that's passed down through other experts in the field. I wanted to share a couple of these quotes with you just briefly. So the Sonoma Ecology Center, which is an organization in the States, they do a lot of GIS mapping of habitats and other things. They have a quote that says, maps are like campfires and everyone gathers around them because they allow people to understand complex issues at a glance and find agreement about how to help the land. And then also another quote, and I think this is important as we move through this workshop, is to think critically about what are maps telling us and what are they leaving out. And so a map is not an objective depiction of reality. It is a symbolic interpretation of place and highlights the relationships between elements in space, either perceived or actual. It reflects choices, biases, and agendas of the map maker. When you see or make a map, think critically about it. What does the map show you and what does it omit and why? And this will really help us, again, as we're moving through this workshop. And so I thought, who better to share a little bit about mapping? Next slide there, Paige. Who better to share something about mapping than Dr. Bryony Penn? She's an environmentalist. Oh, audio cutting out. And then maybe Rana, there's just a little note in the chat there from Scott. Can you see that before I move forward? Oh yeah. And so I just want to share this little clip with you. Bryony Penn really gives a beautiful overview of this terra incognito and what that means, and really understanding the map of the land in a deeper way. And so I'll share this video with you here. I'll share my screen. Oh, or maybe Paige, if you could, can you open it there, Paige? Or no, here, I'll do that. Perfect.
I see someone in the chat said they signed up for the BCWF newsletter already, so that's exciting. They're already getting stoked about wetlands. And I know there's, so Alyssa did mention, there are mapping initiatives that'll happen in the Wetland Keepers course. So that's kind of the good tie into this. Okay.
So I'm just going to take you to this.
And so speaking of small tribes, there's a tradition in Canada now that we always acknowledge the people in whose territory we're sitting or living and enjoying. And this was, in this case, I want to acknowledge the Pomo people. And this tradition in Canada came about because of an error in a map. And I, as a geographer, I always kind of go back to maps and the power of maps. But when people were making maps back in Europe many hundreds of years ago, they didn't know what was here at that time. And so they wrote this terra incognito across this portion of the map. And so for the last 300 years, people have felt that this was an empty space. This was an unknown space. And so when they came here, they came with the perception that there was nothing here. And in fact, even though when they arrived and there was people here and there was vibrant cultures and vibrant native communities of plants and animals, they still didn't see it because they had come with a map in their head that said it was terra incognito and that it was empty land. And so now what happened is that we actually never settled treaties in Canada. And so before any kind of event that happens now, we always acknowledge that. It's our way of trying to move the question, and the very difficult and uncomfortable question of us ourselves as humans inhabiting land, and when we haven't actually negotiated treaties, and how we've brought our own cultures and imposed them on landscapes, and what the implications are, and how do we now at this stage in our existence, how do we forge a new relationship, both with the land and both with the people that were living here? Because as you probably heard from Ken last night as we walked through this landscape and we walked the landscape today, these communities of plants and animals and the cultures, they had a lot of research and development, R&D for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Evolution is kind of a big exercise in R&D, right? And so relationships are formed, intimate relationships are formed over thousands of years, and a lot is learned about how to live well in a place, how to live sustainably. And the Pomo people, I imagine, because they share a landscape that is actually the same ecosystem that I live in, right up at the north end of this range. So I just wanted to kind of give you a brief introduction to this ecosystem, because it's also kind of like, it's also a bit of a personal biography for me, because I kind of feel like it's in my bones. And when I heard Gary talk and Ken talk, for any of us that have grown up in these places or fallen in love with them latterly, it gets into your bones and you become the biography. Your biography essentially becomes the biography of place. And geographers they're people that study place, and in the study of place, I think that there's a kind of a new way or a way back of forging a relationship that might help us through some of the problems. And the other thing I wanted to say is that as a geographer, I think this is a profession that is there for people that have this deep love of place, and they want to try and figure out how they can live in that place and make a living and do the right thing about being there. And essentially it begins with love. And I'm going to start, this is me. This is about 1969.
So that's a short clip from Briny Penn, and Rana's going to include a link there if you'd like to watch the whole video. It is 25 minutes long, so we're just going to show that quick 5 minutes of it. But I wanted to share that with you because I think as we move through this webinar and workshop, really thinking about where you are on the land right now, and how, you know, the actions that you make on the land and how they affect that place, and how they're intimately connected to other watersheds nearby. And I think Briny really speaks well about, you know, the place that you're in, and when you connect with it and kind of get to know nature, it does kind of seep into your bones and into how you live your life in a bigger way. So I wanted to share that short video with you. And then, oh, there we go. And then, so we'll include that link there. Great. And then we're going to be talking a little bit about the lands around us. And then Paige, do you want to? Perfect. Great. And just so, yeah, so kind of building off of that video, the lands around us, understanding where in the landscape you fit as a person, as part of nature, and also understand the history and the culture of the people who were here before you, or you know, even a few years ago. So
nice, thanks, Sarah. Yeah, well said. I think this is a map, if you're not familiar with the Saltwater Peoples Atlas, and we can provide a link to that resource as an online PDF. But it's a beautiful set of maps about the Saanich Nation's territory and where some of those place names exist on the landscape, and definitely a great example of a way to learn more about the cultural history of where you live. So now I was going to talk a little bit about just how stewardship and mapping are connected. And most specifically, you know, there's a synergistic relationship between stewardship and mapping, especially because understanding the natural features around you and in your backyard means you have a deeper understanding of the impacts that your actions will have in the rest of the watershed or the neighborhood or in the community. And so having that understanding that you're just a piece of a greater whole is an important part of stewardship and your impacts to those. So these are just a couple of examples of what can be technically called asset mapping, which I also love, but assets thinking more so ecological assets or natural assets. You know, each of these services that nature provides us, like pollination, filtering our water to make it clean, controlling erosion, you know, soil building, all of those aspects are really important parts of our natural assets. And by mapping some of those, we can get a better sense of where they are and how they can protect us from things like flooding, other things like that. And so a couple of different scales you can see here. On the left is a map created sort of by a habitat steward, and it's, you know, it doesn't have to be technical, it's mostly to scale, but you can see Jenny here was mapping the different types of plants that she was going to put or had in her garden, and different structures. So, you know, a pond, she called it a wildlife condo, kind of like sticks and other structures, rock piles, and different shrubs and trees and ground cover. So having that map of even just your own backyard, you know, what's there and what do you hope to have there are great. And then another example is on the right, one of the maps that we added to our suite of maps from the CRD, a watershed map of Bilston and Latoria Creek, looking at, you know, where it spans across different municipalities, all the different tributaries, their names, and where it ends up. And so some of that is really important learning for community. I'm just going to also talk about the Good Neighbours Program. So if you're not familiar, the HAT Good Neighbours Program is about creating stewards and folks that are good neighbors to nature. That's where the name comes from. And habitat stewards are those who pledge in writing, they sign a stewardship agreement that to care for natural habitats on their land in particular ways. And so there's 6 ways that we define as actions for being a habitat steward with HAT. And although each property is different, of course, you know, things you're doing on a 50-acre parcel of forest in the Highlands is going to be different than, you know, a city lot in Victoria. So there are some similarities, but certainly we want to have this be flexible enough to encompass both of those different kinds of stewards. But you can see here we've got plants, native plants, invasive plants, eliminating pesticides, understanding your watershed, which we'll talk a bit more about later, but understanding how the water on your land drains into a nearby creek or a natural area. And then of course, habitat. And we always emphasize spreading the word to neighbors and friends and continuing to learn, like workshops today. So one of the things we are interested in when we start a Good Neighbours program is to identify what kind of features across a landscape we might be interested in targeting for a new project that we're doing. So we use mapping quite a bit at HAT to identify the natural features at different scales. So for example, in the map here, we're looking at wildlife corridors. And so we know that there are owl and bear and wolves in East Sooke Regional Park, but where are they moving across? And so we want to know if those landowners in between those natural areas, so up to Matheson Park and then up to the Sooke Hills, you know, all the wildlife needs to pass through different areas. Why not create a corridor where landowners are habitat stewards and are committed to being good stewards of wildlife passing through. So, so that was our last 3-year project that we're just wrapping up now, and connecting with many stewards in that particular region, working with them to be stewards and hosts of wildlife corridors. So we look with regional conservation strategies, we do planning with different levels of government, we work directly with the CRD and municipalities, as well as other conservation groups like Coexisting with Carnivores Alliance. And we try and identify, you know, the area of greatest need based off of that. And that identifies where we may focus our efforts. So we use it at all kinds of maps at all scales. So another example of working at different scales is when we do a site visit, say at a particular private property. This is just a screenshot of the CRD Atlas, and we use the Atlas layers to look at what kinds of natural features are there. So this is a screenshot of Observatory Hill, which is a federal property towards Central Saanich, in Saanich, kind of near the Red Barn Market on West Saanich Road, if you know that spot. And that map that you're looking at, we have turned on the sensitive ecosystems. So that is all the different ecosystems that have been identified as sensitive and the approximate sort of polygons of the area that they cover. And so we're looking at, you know, the big brown one is older forest. We've got the legend on the left-hand side there. So we've got an older forest polygon. We've got a terrestrial herbaceous polygon, which typically is associated with Garry Oak ecosystems. So you can see you're starting to tease out, you know, what the habitat looks like before you even go there. And then we can see, you know, there's a creek, Goward Springs, that's running across, and different, we would also look at the different parcels. So if it was a landowner, we'd want to know the size, the topography, you know, the elevation, water availability. Is there going to be seasonal flooding in a particular spot on the property? Are there presence of oak species like Garry Oak Meadows? Other sensitive habitats, like maybe there's older growth trees. So some of those features are important parts of piecing together what kind of stewardship there would be, stewardship options for that landowner. The other way we look at or we utilize mapping is for identifying visits. And then this is an example of being on a visit, a site visit with a habitat steward. And you can see on the left-hand side, so this is something Rana created at HAT, which is a super helpful way to visualize, you know, our site visits, our contact with different habitat stewards, and where they're at in their process. And so utilizing those features, changing in Google My Maps, changing the little icons to be a more visual representation of what we're doing. And so you can see, you know, we've got what we call the legend here, and Rana created a fantastic different suite of icons that can represent different things. And we'll get into this as well. And then on this side, on the right side, you can see the aerial image, which is, you know, the overhead photograph, which is available through the CRD Atlas. that is, a very fine detail, and we can then draw little polygons in the atlas showing, this area is, we wanted to encourage this steward to do a driveway planting here. This is amphibian habitat with the blue circle, and demonstrating, different project areas, different stewardship options that landowner can take. So just generally, I think you've all expressed a lot of these already, but it's important, and a part of what we want to be able to facilitate and empower you to do is, what kind of mapping can you do as a steward? And these are just a couple of examples that would be, beneficial to the conservation community, but I'm sure there are so many other ones. But understanding the CRD Atlas or Google Maps is a useful skill to know, being a neighbor to nature, being a resident or a landowner, or just being, a student wherever you are, and being aware of how, the piece of land that you live or work on fits in and connects to a greater sort of matrix of natural areas within a watershed, nearby sensitive ecosystems, and, different invasive species that may be impacting, if they're on your property, they might be impacting a neighbor's property, being, aware of that, and vice versa, of course. So taking under consideration, every piece of land or water or shoreline is connected to a specific watershed. And we wanted to start with that, with watersheds, as a exercise, as a practice for folks to get familiar with what a map looks like, and maybe perhaps trying to locate yourself within it. So what we're going to do is share in the chat a link to this watershed map. And so what we'd love for folks to do is just take a minute or two, doesn't have to be long. If you're comfortable, go to the link that's provided in the chat and take a look at this watershed map. It's very high resolution, so it might take a moment or two to load, but getting a sense of where you are in this particular watershed. So when I took a look at this map at higher resolution, what we're going to do is, as you take a look at that map, we're going to come back and just do our best to fill out what watershed we're in, if we can find that out. So when I looked at that map, I identified that I am in the Bowker Creek watershed, which drains, and I think that might be similar for lots of folks because it's a big watershed and an urban watershed, and it drains into sort of the Oak Bay area, which is pretty interesting. And so we'll also share the link to the brainstorm of which watershed do you live, and people can jump in there and make a little comment about which watershed they are living in. So we've got a couple of slides here that I'm pulling up, and as folks populate them, I'll just leave it down there. We're looking at here. So the Cowichan, wonderful. So off our map, apologies. And oh, someone said Bow River Basin in Alberta. Amazing. So I'm going to add Bowker Creek. Amazing. A couple of Colquitts folks. Nice. That's fantastic. So as you're exploring the the watershed map link, getting a sense of, what other watersheds are adjacent to the one you live and where do they drain. That's one thing that I'm really interested in is, eventually the water that runs off my property into the storm drains will likely end up in some sort of culvert and right into the ocean. And so everything that runs there is going to be impacting the marine life, the clams and the fish and different marine species that are depended on by especially the Indigenous communities here. So, if I'm doing a poor job of painting my house and I let a lot of, toxic paint run into the creek, that's going to be impacting things downstream. So it's great to keep those items in mind as we go. So feel free to keep looking at the map and getting a better sense of where you live, and just to gain a little bit more on the importance of stewardship mapping. I'm just gonna chat for a moment about that. I think I already really spoke about that, but I did want to talk about why it might be useful for you especially. I do think that understanding how making connections across the landscape, like I mentioned, even certain properties might have unique characteristics and ecological functions. Backyard mapping to community mapping, we can look at all kinds of different scales of maps. So like I mentioned, a backyard map is a fun way to just get started. And then these amazing community green maps that I know Ken Josephson had been a part of, and the community mapping collaboratory at UVic, creating these fabulous, beautiful, artistic maps of important features to the community. And I obviously love the native plants around the edges. But there's all kinds of ways you can map stewardship actions or inactions, and how they can have an impact over time even. So I gave some examples there. And then of course, knowledge sharing in the community, the more we speak to each other about these issues, the more awareness there will be. Like Alyssa said, if you don't know about a thing, it's hard to care about it. So that's an important aspect. And then the last brainstorm with me right now is going to be looking at the how you could use stewardship mapping in your life. So Rana's going to share Sarah's going to share the link to this one, and we'd love to know just how maybe you might use brainstorming mapping. How might you use mapping in your own life? And we can brainstorm ideas together. So if you have thoughts about that, we can take a look at it. And I think we've done that one. Yes, oh great, I love to see that. All the different watersheds folks are participating in and sitting in. So if there's a role or a use that you might find already thinking about, or you just think, oh, it would be interesting to know, where the patches of invasive plants are in the community, where the the parks are exactly. So where might there be species at risk? I'm seeing someone write. Incorporating it into education, fantastic. Yes, backyard mapping, a great place to start. Getting, acquainted with local watersheds. There's a great map about the lost streams of Victoria, and especially urban ones that have been culverted or completely sort of changed, and I'll try and dig up a link to it, but it's a fantastic resource as well. Okay, and I think, Sarah, did you want to take over and we're getting close. I think we're getting close to our little break time. So
really close. I'll just quickly I'll just fly through this before
Okay.
you take a break. But if you're not familiar with QGIS or ArcMap programs, oftentimes how those programs are created are through satellite. You can also use satellite to create remote sensing if you're looking at areas which are, wetlands or elevation and those kinds of things. You can see that here in some of these photos. Recently, it's been really interesting to see how drone footage has been used and drone imagery to map coastlines. If you're interested in that, the Coastal Marine Resources organization does a lot of work with flight line corrections and looking at satellite imagery over time and layering that on the landscape through mapping. Quite interesting. And then next slide. And so some of the training tools that are accessible and softwares that we suggest you can also check out are the BC Wildlife Federation has a Map Our Marshes program that you can look up online as well if you're interested in seeing some of the work that they're working on. Crd Atlas, which we're going to look at today, as well as the Google My Maps, QGIS, and also iNaturalist and Avenza. So if you're interested in doing more field work and you have an iPad, you can actually go out, or a phone, and take photos of wildlife and plants, and you can geolocate them through iNaturalist, which then gets shared in a larger database, and is great for looking up where you might see birds or amphibians and those kinds of things. It's a great tool for citizen science mapping. They also use it at Parks Canada out of Fort Rod Hill. Shout out to Amy Pelletier, who's here and does a lot of work with iNaturalist. And Avenza, we use that for a lot of our land stewardship and land protection. So on covenants, we go out and monitor covenants with HAT, as well as other organizations multiple times a year, and we use Avenza to map that. OpenStreetMaps from Edmund, yes, that's also a great tool. So we've got one more exercise. It's interesting to know which mapping programs have you used. So we'll put that link in the chat as well, and we'll open up one more activity, and then we'll take a break. Everybody's hanging in there.
Fantastic. Yes, so we've got, if you want to put it in the chat, that's fine, but if you can click the link and let us know. And this is actually, oh, sorry, let me grab the other one. There we go. Oh. Oh, sorry, Sarah, maybe I clicked the wrong link. Apologies. I will pull up the right one. Which mapping programs? There we go. And so we want to so great. Which mapping programs? Oh, here, just has the wrong title. That's okay. We'll fix that. Great, yeah, so Google Maps, iNaturalist, Google Earth, QGIS. Amazing.
Oh, the CVRD Atlas, that's great.
Nice.
We're working out in Cowichan. Geocaching, yes, also fantastic.
Love that.
Pencil and paper, yes, also great. Yeah,
great.
Perfect. Okay. Well, feel free to keep adding to that, and we'll give you about a 10-minute break now. So from 10:45 until 10:55, and then we'll all meet back. So feel free to get a snack, take a water break. Thanks so much.
Great. Okay.
We've got lots of experienced mappers out there. QGIS, Magic Maps in the UK.
Totally.
Check that out. That's fun.
Yeah. So I see what I did now. There was no slide that said bio break, so I just like plowed through it all. So we've done Stewardship Mapping 101. And now we can just go into our explore sessions.
Oh, perfect. Oh,
So,
yes. Oh, amazing. Wow.
So we're kind of ahead of schedule.
Yeah, we are. That's great.
10:45. We could always like see if folks had a bunch of questions, if there was anything, and then spend 5 minutes answering questions.
Let's do that. That's a good idea. Yeah. Perfect.
That's great. But we'll definitely.
I'm glad the sticky notes have worked out so well. I was worried.
Yeah, people are jazzed about it.
Mm-hmm. Great. Fantastic.
Yay.
Perfect. So I've got all the breakout rooms ready.
Oh, yes.
So I just have to press open all rooms, and then I'll have to just put the links in those rooms.
Perfect.
Hey, Paige and Sarah.
Yes.
I'm not sure if the person is still here, but we just we had a couple questions, and I don't know, one where you got the colored version of the saltwater people map. I don't know if you're able to share that. I shared the black and white version.
Okay.
And then there's also a question about the if you could repeat the name of the drone mapping group, and just in case they're away, maybe just type it in the chat.
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to think about where. I think I got it from Kristen, but or maybe it was just from the Wasanich website. Let me see. I do some digging.
Here, I just put the link here, Rana. Thank you. Answering the question. Great. So Paige, I'll just send those links in individually. So I somehow can't share them in advance for the breakout rooms, but.
Oh, gotcha. It's weird when someone tries to come in, there's like a button that shows up that says admit, but then if I don't click it, it just disappears and I can never see it again.
I've been doing it.
Okay, good. I was like, am I neglecting?
No, no worries.
Okay.
Seeing if I've missed anybody from breakout rooms, but I think no. Oh, great. Thanks, Rana. Good idea. Yeah, so it doesn't include, the watershed map ends at the Souk River. So Rosemary's just commenting that it's of concern that the information doesn't include more of the CRD. I'm wondering if there's a larger map that we could provide. There might be a larger one. But CRD Atlas.
I have one here.
Oh. Yeah. Thanks, Rana.
No problem.
I was going to say check out. Oh, Couch and River, that's a great question. Paige, do you know if there's anything like Shore Zone, which is the mapping core, it's called CORI, Coastal and Oceans Resources, for fresh water. Do you know if there's a map that maps freshwater areas, maybe Couch and River? The CVRD Atlas maybe, hey? We haven't checked that out. We could check out the. Just give people a few more minutes here. So we'll get everybody to come back together, no rush, but we'll start in the next minute or two, and we'll just open the floor up for any questions you have about the presentation so far. And Paige, do you still want to present on slide 30, or do you want to skip to 31? How are you doing? Yeah, okay, just checking.
So many great brainstorm sessions over here.
Yeah, lots of great questions. I'm so happy everybody's engaged.
Yeah, this is fantastic.
And here's the link as well to, they're called Quarry, Coastal and Oceans Resources. They have some fantastic photos and videos of some of the Flightline helicopter work that's been done over the last decade and a half along the coast. It's really fantastic. Okay.
Looks like people are coming back, which is great. Welcome back, everybody. Okay. Okay, so we might as well. Did you have some questions that popped up, Sarah, or should we?
I think Rana and I have been fielding them in the chat, but I thought if anybody wants to ask them and just have their video on and just say hello, feel free to ask your questions now too. We are ahead of schedule, so we've got a few minutes if anybody would like to share any feedback or questions you might have. No? Okay.
Okay, well, we might as well pop into our Google My Maps exploratory session. Yeah, we're gonna talk a bit about how to apply My Map. So I'm gonna share my screen again, and we will get started here. Okay. Oh, so nice to see the faces. Every time I share my screen, it's like, there's people there. It's great. Okay. So that's a nice black box you see. Okay, here we go. Present. So I think I mentioned that I did my undergrad in geography. So definitely a map nerd through and through. And one of the things that I loved learning about was use and occupancy mapping, which was and still is a tool used to defend Indigenous rights and title across a territory. So in a colonial setting, the government required some sort of a colonial piece of evidence to demonstrate what they called use and occupancy. And unfortunately, oral histories in the format that is utilized and other sort of different ways of recording this kind of information were not acceptable in the colonial treaty process. And so there had to be a way for anthropologists and folks that would call themselves ethnographers or sort of geographers that would demonstrate culture on the landscape, which is the ethnography title, to be able to show this on a map. And that way the colonial structure, the Canadian government, could understand this use and occupancy on the land. And it's a very complex issue, and I'm barely just brushing the surface, but essentially these ethnographers or anthropologists were white settlers who came across in sort of the mid 1800s, early 1800s, all kinds sort of in that period to this area, and documented a lot of what was going on at the time as the settlers were coming across. And so these are large books with intense detail about place and uses on the land in these communities. And so there were a couple of books written by different ethnographers, and my interest and one of my courses focused on creating these maps. And my interest was primarily in the lands around us. And as I said, being a steward and understanding where we come from as a settler, but also where the history that lives in the land and the connections to place that already exist. And so that was my my interest there. And so I did want to focus my project on the local area. And so what I did was read, hundreds of pages of these ethnographic books in the Special Collections Library at UVic, and started mapping all of the features that were just described by text. So they'd say, 2 kilometers off the coast of here, or whatever. You had to kind of locate that. And so this is just a screenshot of part of the map that I created of the Lekwungen territory, based off of these, public records that were developed usually in the 1840s. And so what I'm going to show you here is this is all created in Google My Maps, and you can use different kinds of shapes or features is what they call them. And I'll demonstrate this in a moment. And so for this map, you can see there's a large polygon, which is demonstrating the approximate territories. And then the text is different names that were used in these different books to describe the people that lived in this general area. And these were very rough lines that these, white male settlers figured were areas in there based off of conversations that they had. And so to demonstrate some of these different ways you can use My Maps, I have this map here, and so this is the map that you are looking at, but I've just turned off the different layers on the left here. And so this is sort of your legend and your working area of Google My Maps. And it's a great platform because it has the familiar look and feel of Google Maps that lots of folks are really familiar with. And although it's probably quite a bit more simple than, say, ArcGIS or other, programming, it does provide a bit more of a relatability and ease of use in some ways. So I've got these this polygon here that I mentioned, that's the territory, a little description of that. I've got what my project was, and you can kind of look at this. And so I did say, you know, it's not comprehensive, it's not ground truth, and it doesn't represent a complete record. This is just a few ethnographies. But what was wonderful about it was I could change the different looks and feels of the icons, which I really liked. And so as I turned on and off these areas, whoops, I could have these different icons for houses, for different geographic features, whether it was a mountain is kind of what I was going for there, a water feature, and that was the name in the language, what that feature was. So some people might recognize that name looks similar to one you're familiar with, perhaps not because it's in the Lekwungen language. But essentially that's Peebles, or people know it as Mount Douglas Park. But just getting to know, again, you know, taking things that are in text and getting to know the region that I live in, and so I thought that was a really important part of the process. So say, for example, I wanted to create a new duck hunting site. I could go up to here where it says add a marker, and I could place my duck hunting site over here and write duck hunting as the title. And I can save it. I could also create a description where I have, you know, duck hunting here in the ocean is the description, and duck hunting. And you can save that. You could also add a photo if you wanted, or even a video. So if you had a picture of the site, you know, today, and you wanted to document that, you could do that. And so I've got the duck hunting site, but I don't have the icon that looks like the duck, which I need to change. So here is where it's called a style. And you can click on a style, and what you can do is use a different color if you want. So if you wanted it green, you could have a green sort of place marker. You could change that shape of your marker. You could create, as you saw in the map, there's different icons, and you can even, if you go into more icons, there are so many icons. And so if you're kind of trying to create a nice visual map for folks to be able to recognize what's there without maybe having a legend, this is kind of a nice way to do that. And so if you know, you can even make a custom icon, or you can upload a picture of your face or something if you wanted, or a picture of, you know, Camas, and add it that way. But I want to use the duck, so I'm going to select the duck, and there's my little duck hunting site. Duck hunting here in the ocean. Pretty unlikely, but this is an example. So that's that. And then the same goes for if you want to create a line. And you can kind of create different routes. If you don't quite know where it is, but you wanted to add the Empress Hotel, you could do that, and it would plop a point right where you Google searched the Empress Hotel, and lo and behold, look at that. There was a wetland. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. So you can even create a line. Oh, this was, you know, something important. And then if you didn't want that line, you can just delete the feature there. So I think, you know, it does add a nice element. If I wanted to add a description of this place, I could edit that and then go into the description and edit into the description there. So if you wanted more detail. So yeah, it is quite an interesting part of Google My Maps. And I think, you know, there are those couple of options for creating items. It is very simple. So if you wanted to have, you know, if you wanted to do an analysis of, you know, how much of this area overlays or overlaps this area, that's not really possible in My Maps, but that might not be your goal. So, and there are ways as well to integrate different layers from other sources. We won't go into that today, but if you have questions about My Maps, there are tons of tutorials online, and we can provide resources on those if needed. So what we're going to do next is head back to the presentation and do a breakout session, and Sarah is going to lead us through what that is going to look like.
Thank you so much, Paige. And we had some great questions in the feed. That map that Paige shared is private and I believe now owned by the community. And
yes, that's correct. So it's owned by the Songhees Nation, so I cannot share it, unfortunately. But but I know they have plans to share it as a nation, and so when they do, then it'll be available. But it was pretty exciting. You know, I created this as a class project, and then I just happened to email it to the Songhees Nation, saying, you know, I made this. I don't know if it would be helpful, and then they're using it in their community, and so that's pretty exciting, and that, you know, warmed my heart. They said, you know, I can do demos, but I just can't share the full map with folks. There are some sensitive information, but I mean, all the sites are public in the ethnographic record. So, so they're out there. Sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
That's great. Thank you so much, Paige. So we're going to take a little bit of those skills that Paige has shared with us now, and we're going to each get the opportunity to chat with each other in breakout rooms. And Sarah, Forbes and I have put together some maps. So I've put together some Google My Maps that have got some specific polygons, some areas highlighted on them. And I'm going to send you those links now in your breakout rooms. You will have a little message that pops up on the top of your screen that says accept breakout room. So if you can just accept that. If you have any questions, you can just send a message and I should be able to see it. But some of the areas that we're going to be looking at are the Bilston Creek area, Olympic View Golf Course, Craigflower Creek, Cecilia Creek, Galloping Goose Trail, Wildwood Creek, Colquitts River, and the Bowker Creek Waterway. So you'll be in a group where you'll get to focus on that area. And a couple of questions to sort of discuss with the group are, look at the water courses that are flowing through these polygons. Think about what might have been there before. There are some ways that you can also click on satellite if you want to look at the land in Google Earth style rather than the grayscale. And then also consider wildlife corridors. You'll see some of the maps that you have highlight multiple polygons. And so there's room for discussion there too. So bear with me. I'm just going to take a minute to break you into links for breakout rooms. Yes, thank you, Rana. And then so Rana's also included the breakout room links there as well for you to go in and actually see the group. But I'm just going to send you all to your breakout rooms now. And while you're there, just wait a minute and I'm going to send you the link to your Google My Maps so you can get started. And then within your group, pick one person who will be sharing their screen to the rest of your group so you can discuss the map through that and add points and create new polygons, draw lines and all the things that Paige has showed you.
Nice. And you're going to have about 10 minutes. So that'll be great. Enjoy.
Right.
I'm located in View Royal down here in but I work a lot with the Duncan because I'm sit with the Couch and Stewardship Roundtable.
Oh, awesome. I know some people that are involved with that as well.
Oh, that's good. So I think Sarah's here to give us our assignment.
There's your map. So I'm just going to pop in, give you your map, and then I'm going to leave. And you can have some fun for 10 to 15 minutes just talking about your map, and you can each edit it because it is a Google My Map. You can have multiple people editing at once, like a Google Doc. And if you have any questions, you can just send me a message through the chat as well. Okay, have fun.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks.
Look at that. Hi, Sarah, you're on mute.
Thank you. I'm going to send you, Jason, the link to your map. There's your map. You're going to have Thetis Lake. So again, looking at water courses and have some fun. I'll come and get you in about 15 minutes.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks.
New to me.
Hello.
Oh, hey, Sarah.
Hello. So I'm going to send you the link. And then that's your Google My Maps link, and you can have some fun looking at the polygons, adding points. And once you open that up, everybody will open it up. And Amy, if you want to share your screen, and then everybody else can see working on it together.
Okay, wait, I had one technical issue in trying to share my screen, which was that it said that the screen sharing was not enabled.
Oh.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, you might have to just all open it separately. But once you open it on your own, you'll also see each other working on it.
Okay, so sorry, we're on the Cecilia Creek one?
Yes, you're Cecilia Creek.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So how do I get there?
You'll click on the link, and Amy's going to share it in your little meeting. Sorry, I should have clarified that. So Amy, if you want to write the link, because for some reason, oh no, I can do it. There.
I can do it, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, any other questions?
Ah, this looks better.
I'm not seeing where we have opportunity to edit or add to it.
Oh.
It looks like a static link from what I'm seeing.
Okay, let me see. They should all be editable. I'll make sure my settings are right on that. Share. Public. Close. Okay, see if that works now. It should be public. Make sure all of it.
Polygon.
You see it?
I see a polygon on there, but I'm not seeing tools at all.
Oh.
It gives me an option to create my own map, but not to edit.
Oh. Public. I'm going to make sure all of these are public. Access, drive sharing.
Yeah, details.
I wonder how to share it, because it says enable link sharing, and then I've got public, everyone on the internet can find and access. And I'm wondering why that doesn't work for editing.
Yeah.
I
think it's a difference between, this is a sort of a shared preview of the map rather than a shared Google My Maps, if that makes sense.
Oh.
I'm wondering if down at the bottom, Sarah, if you click on Made with Google My Maps, then you'll see that'll take you to all of the maps that you've created.
So now where would that be? On the bottom?
Yeah, on the bottom of that map link that you've shared, there's a grayed out thing that says Made with Google My Maps.
At the bottom.
Yeah, at the bottom left. Yeah.
Oh, are you on the screen that's red? You're on the
She might not have the same screen that we have, Ken.
Okay, that could be.
Oh, I see it. I got it. So let's see. Oh, and then shared. Just say, make them all shared. Owned. Ah, I see. Share. Oh, so I have to share the map. I see. Okay, so I'll try this. Share. I can only share via email. Embed on my site. Oh no, this might not work. Okay, I gotta think quick. Should we? Let's just see. Maybe this will work. Try this one. Does that still not grant you access to editing?
Let's give it a try.
No.
It gets us to the same place. Yeah.
Okay.
Looks like the same.
Same?
We could create our own maps.
Yeah. What if you create? I'll get you to create your own map. I'll go through everybody's and just get them to create their own. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, maybe look at Cecilia Creek and create a map around the Cecilia Creek. How about that?
Okay.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. See you in a little bit. Hi, everybody. I've just been working on technical difficulties. I realized that the maps that I was sharing don't seem to be like I'm trying to figure out how to share them, which can sometimes be challenging with these programs. You can try and see if this works if you're able to access it. But before it was that you weren't able to edit it. So I think what I'm going to do instead is just give you an area. And someone can just open Google My Maps and make a little map with pins or polygons around the Matheson Lake area. So pick Matheson Lake and you can create a polygon around it and then put pins where you think amphibians might live or wildlife might travel between the Matheson Lake area and another protected area. And just kind of have some discussion around a little map you might like to create with that. Just by using the basic Google My Maps entry. So I'll give you the Google My Maps website if you don't already have it open. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties.
That's okay. It happens.
Yeah. Okay, there's the Google My Maps. So if one of you wants to share your screen within your group, or if you all just want to open that and kind of have some fun just creating and discussing, looking at the area separately or sharing your screen. Are you able to share your screen within the breakout room?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, try and see if you can do it just while I'm here with you. It should work.
Where are we here? Google.com maps, is that what we're supposed to look at?
Yeah.
I'll try it. Come on, we've gone up. Here we are. All right. And we're going to go to Matheson Lake. Oops.
And then can you share your screen?
How do I do that?
There's a button at the bottom here and it should say share screen. And then you can share your screen. It's just at the bottom. There's like a mute button, a stop button, and I think it should be at the bottom if you see it, participants, and then chat, and then reactions. And in the middle, there's a button that says share screen.
On mine, it says share content. Is that?
Yes. Yep. That works. Try that. See what?
Oh, no, I don't have it open though.
Oh, that's okay.
I don't have the map.
The trouble is, oops.
Here.
Let me go back out of there again.
Chat.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
You can also open your own and then just have some fun exploring it too, if that works. The Google My Maps.
I found the maps, but as soon as I go into the maps, I lose all of the Zoom stuff.
Oh.
So I can't share the screen. I can the Google Maps when that's, and then everything else disappears. So I'm not sure what to do now.
Oh, it says only the host can share this meeting. Okay, well, that's nice.
Oh.
Okay.
That's interesting. I wonder if I can, no. Okay, well then maybe if everybody just wants to go into the Google My Maps website themselves and just look at Matheson Lake, and then you can all talk about what you're seeing.
Okay. Cool. Will do.
And that's the same as that link you sent us, is it?
Yes, that link.
Okay.
And then from there, what you'll do to create a map is you'll have to go, there's 3 lines on the side, click that left side with the 3 lines. It'll say search Google Maps. And then you just want to go down to, let me see.
Edit the map.
You got it?
Yeah, it says edit the map.
Oh, perfect.
I'll try that. Okay, where's Matheson Lake?
So if you want to walk your group members through how you did that,
Oh.
that would be great.
Yes, I went to the 3 lines at the top, clicked on it, and went down the list until I got to edit the map.
Ah, okay.
Perfect. Okay, you're in good hands. I'm going to move to another group. Good job.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Now
Thank you.
How do we move?
Okay, so we've been having some slight difficulties just trying to get the map together, which you're probably like, what's going on? So I think what we're going to do is we'll just give you the name of an area. So we'll just say Bowker Creek. And then if you're able to share your screens, I don't know if you're able to do that. I've been trying to play around with other groups to see if they can share their screen within. Are you able to do that within each other?
Hey Sarah, can I, so do you want us to just be looking at this, because we were all looking at the Olympic View golf course map just now.
Okay, perfect. Okay, do that and then just talk about that map. That's
Sure.
great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want me?
Yep.
Do you want me to jump to any, because Paige and I are in the same room? Do you want me to do some jumping around and make sure people? Do you want me to go to any breakout rooms specifically?
That would be great. I think maybe if you could just check on breakout room 4 and 6, and then I'm going to go to 8. And then, and if we overlap, that's fine too.
Okay. And you 3, I'll be back.
Okay, see you later.
I'm happy with that. So did you get the link, Priska, to Google My Maps?
Oh, hi, everybody. Are you talking about the map?
We are, Sarah. We
Yes, we are.
problem.
And the problem that some of them, like myself, can't get into it.
I know, that was what I realized. I didn't realize that it would be so challenging to share them. So do you have, I'll send you the just like one of the maps and you can just look at them. And just maybe discuss what you see in there. And then if you want to also just open Google My Maps and have some fun later on after the workshop, I think that might be easier. And then this way you can just look at the polygon for now.
Great, Sarah. And how much time do we have?
You've got about another, I think, 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Sorry for the complications. It's our first time doing this, but it's good. We're all working out the kinks in it now.
Yeah. No, thank you, Sarah.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to move to another group here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Sorry for the complications there. I think what happened is that the Google My Maps, you have to, when you're sharing them, make sure that they're shared with people's individual emails in order for people to edit them. And I don't think I wasn't able to do that in advance. I realized that that was the issue there. So that's one technical issue, that when you're creating your maps yourselves, you'll now know that there's a setting where you have to actually include other people's emails in order to edit and invite them. So my apologies for that. I would recommend that everybody check out Google My Maps after the workshop. And if you have any questions, you can always email or call Paige and I, and we can help you work on your project later on. But for the sake of time, we're going to move along to the CRD portion of this presentation. Does anybody have any questions before we move forward? Or feedback? I know that was a bit complicated. No? Okay. So maybe if we want to move on here, I'm going to open the floor up to Sarah Forbes from the CRD, and she'll be sharing a little bit of an introduction to the CRD Atlas and how that works in contrast to the Google My Maps program, which you saw Paige gave an introduction to earlier on. And then we're also just going to be sending, so you won't have to actually dive into the CRD Atlas for the next breakout room. It'll just be a document that I'll send you. And you can all look at it individually, and there'll be images of earlier images of the CRD Atlas and later images from 2013 to 2019. And then you'll be comparing and contrasting those two maps and looking at how the landscape has changed over time. But I'll open the floor up to Sarah, and she's going to share more about the CRD Atlas.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm hoping everyone can hear me. So as Paige had indicated earlier, I work at the CRD and I'm passionate about cartography, and I work with a great group of people who create a lot of cartographic products across many departments. The department I work in is regional parks, so parks and protected areas are at my heart. So today what I would like to do is spend about 10 minutes to share my screen with you and to show you our regional community atlas. So that is really where it's a publicly available application through the web where people can look at information and data, particularly for the CRD region. And we also have an opportunity that any of the information you see in the regional atlas, you are also able to download and consume through a WMS format. So if anybody is wanting to bring it into Google My Maps or QGIS or any Esri product, you're able to do that. So I'll spend the next 10 minutes focusing on the Community Atlas itself. And then as Sarah has indicated, we'll break out into the breakout groups again, but we'll be looking at particular PDF maps that we can then discuss as groups and then come back to see what information we were looking at. So right now I am going to share my screen. Sarah, do you think everybody's able to see the Regional Community Atlas?
Looks great, Sarah.
Thank you. Okay, so everyone, this is the homepage of the Regional Community Atlas. And so the main home bar, you're able to see some information about what is available through this. So you're able to build your own map, and you're also able to explore and analyze different information. There are also links provided in the home page. So if you want to know more about the regional map and the map services, you can click on that item. As well as we have other community maps that are more specific for if you're looking for downloadable PDF maps that you may want to bring into Avenza on a tablet or a mobile device, we have links to those products, as well as community maps and a harbors map. So feel free to look through all the different links that are there, because there's a big resource of information, either in the data itself or existing maps that are all geo-referenced so that you can bring them into your mobile device and use them for navigational purposes. The toolbar on the CRD Atlas is accessible by, I'm not sure if you can see that, but if in the top right corner, you can open the toolbar. When you open the toolbar, you have 5 tabs that you're able to look through and really start to customize and look at the type of information you would like to see on your map. So if I look at the home toolbar, we have a layers list, and in here we have all the mapping layers that you're able to look at through the Community Atlas. So for instance, we have administrative layers, which are really looking at the land base. So is it provincial land? Right here I've turned on all the regional park land that the CRD operates, as well as municipal parks. You're able to look at agricultural land, private forest land, especially if you go out towards the Juan de Fuca, you can see, you know, which areas are under private forest management. You're also able to move down and look at some environmental data. So I know Paige had indicated earlier that she had used some other tools to look at, for example, sensitive ecosystems. So that information is available. Let's see if I zoom in here. So we can see all of the sensitive ecosystem mapping that is available for the area. And if you want to see the type and the description and the legend, you are able to do that. I'm also able to use the identify tool to potentially look at an area on the map, and the results will pop up in an identity results window where I can look at, for example, what type of sensitive ecosystem I am looking at. So here it will show me that in Francis King Park, there is an old forest sensitive ecosystem, and it will zoom me into that. It will also tell me, you know, how big it is, what the forest age for that polygon is. If I go back to my layers list, we also have additional information, for example, around rare species. So this is really pulling in data from the provincial CDC, which is identifying rare species within the region. And so if I'm interested, as Paige had indicated earlier with the neighborhood program, if I'm interested to see if there is any rare species documented on our properties, you're able to really zoom into an area and see the property information as well as that rare species polygon. We also have some planning data that is available. For example, information about planning around the Juan de Fuca and the electoral areas. And there is some information on the CRD growth strategy. And particularly for this workshop, there is a lot of water features and drainage information. So for example, if I zoom out again, let's see here. If I'm wanting to see which watershed I am currently in, the blue line will indicate which watershed I'm in, and if I'm interested to get the name will come up as a label, but I can also click on that and it will show me where the full watershed is versus some of the sub-watersheds and that delineation of the water courses within your area of interest. You're also able to turn on any specific water features, so whether or not they're natural features or constructed features within an urban area, you're also able to see that type of information. So in addition to the layers, if you look along the bottom of the application, you have an ability to either work within your grayscale base map, or you have four options for satellite imagery. So for example, I can click on the 2019 imagery and I can see for the region, let's zoom out here. I can see that a lot of the core region has been flown in 2019, and I can see all the different information that is provided there. But you'll see that it's not necessarily complete. There's some areas that were not flown in 2019. And so you can use the bottom toolbar to really look through the different imagery options to see where you can find the information that you're looking for your area. Having the historical imagery is very helpful if you're looking at land use changes over time, or if you're trying to get a sense of the history of the region at a certain location. There's also an ability along the bottom toolbar to change your scale. So if you're looking at zooming in to 1 to 250,000 and looking at a very localized community, you're able to do so, as well as you can move out to a much broader scale and look at the region or a specific sub-region. Additionally, we have some, along the top toolbar, we also have some data tools. So you are able to upload data to your web map. So if you are looking, maybe you've gone out and you've captured your own information in a community, or for example, at a wetland, when you've done a site visit and you've taken a lot of point data, you're able to take that file, and as long as you have it in a GPX format or a shapefile format, you'll be able to upload that file by choosing the file and clicking the upload button, and then it will drop itself onto your map. So you will be able to see that and be able to then query the information, like the property information or stream information in that area. The other areas that you're able to do is you can do markup drawings on your map. So if you are interested, for example, in Elk Beaver Lake, you can zoom in and you can use any of these tools to drop a point. You can add text, and you can also plot your coordinates. So if you're wanting to give this information to a neighborhood group or a community group, and you'd like them to know exactly where you are, you can plot those coordinates on the map. And the last thing I'd like to show you here is the measure tool. So again, if you're looking at a specific property and you're wanting to measure either the area or the distance of maybe a property to a water course, you're able to do that as well with the measure tools. And so lastly, if you have worked in this environment and you've done some markups, you've queried some information, you are able to export the information you have as a map image. So you can export it into multiple image formats, such as a JPEG or a PNG. You're also able to export it as a GeoTIFF. So that means that it's geo-referenced. And so if you would like to then use that map in a Venza Maps application or any other third-party application, you're able to bring it into that application and you will be able to locate yourself on that map. So that's really helpful for navigation purposes. And lastly, you are able to send it out as a PDF if you're wanting to bring it into a report document or provide it on a website. And lastly, you're able to print the view that you have. So if you're working with a community group and you've all been kind of contributing to this map, and then you'd like to share it out to someone else or just print it out for your own reference, you're able to print it again. And you can specify what area you would like to print it. You can also specify the size you would like to print it, again, the output format, as well as the resolution, and you can add a title and you can provide some notes with that as well. So that's really a very quick and dirty introduction to the CRD Atlas. It's an incredible tool if you are looking to find additional information about a specific area within the CRD region. There are a lot of opportunities to query data and find a little bit more information about some of the items you're looking at, as well as providing a really easy to use tool to just visualize your property, your community, as well as use it as a collaborative tool to kind of start a conversation with a community group. Does anyone have any questions?
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah.
I'll pull up the chat here. And yeah, I had a question just to get us started.
Yeah.
I wondered about how certain layers can be added to the database when it comes to habitat. For example, the sharp-tailed snake layer or other layers like that. How does that process work?
So are you thinking, oh, sorry, let me just make sure I understand the question correctly. So are you wondering, how does the information get pulled into the Community Atlas in the terms of how reliable is it? How often is it updated? Is that what you're thinking, Paige?
I'm just thinking, you know, say if a community group has collected some data around, you know, changes in the way the environment has, you know, they're seeing this area is no longer a creek or what have you. If they see things like that where they're like, oh, this might be good to either update the information or add some detail or something, how would a community member address that or maybe bring it up to you folks?
Yeah, so the way that the environmental information is predominantly brought into this application is through existing provincial sites. So if we have, for example, a rare species that you have found or have inventoried, the mechanism to bring that information into this site would be to connect with the CDC, the Conservation Data Center. And once they are able to bring that into their data set, then our application will then consume that updated information.
Perfect.
It is helpful if that process is not moving along super quickly. You could definitely provide an email to the CRD through, for example, on the homepage, there is a link about if you have any questions or suggestions, please email the help desk, and that can just trigger for us to know that there has been a change. And if we get enough emails from the community to say, oh, I have this new information, I have this new data, we can then work specifically with the different agencies to try to incorporate that information.
Cool, thank you. I see we've got some other questions. Sarah Lax, did you want to go for those?
Yeah, maybe we'll field those to Sarah Forbes. Ken asks, this is for Sarah, can one save a layered map and come back to it for further editing later on?
Yes, you can, as long as you're using the same computer. So what you can do is, if you have been working in your map session and you have created certain layers that you've turned on and off, maybe you've added some graphical edits on top of the map, you're able to save it as a bookmark, and you can add your bookmark of your current extent. And so if you add it into there, so if I say add the current extent, I can type my extent would be Elk Beaver Lake, and that will stay sorry, I've had to deny it, but if you are on your computer, you can accept that. And what it will do is anytime that you come back to your CRD Community Atlas map, you'll be able to click on the bookmarks and you'll be able to find it in your list. And then you will be able to refresh that view. You're not able to do that if, for example, you used one computer to create the map and then you're using a different computer to go back to the map, because it's saving it to your local drive on your local computer.
Great, thank you, Sarah.
Yes.
And another question we had was, can you explain how to decipher the codes in the layer information that you had explained regarding like the older forested areas? So maybe in terms of codes, just going through the exactly, yeah. Perfect. Yes, so that's when maybe some people were asking about looking for rare species and where to find that data. So there we have some information under Gary Oak too, I think. Perfect.
Yes, so anything that you're looking for in terms of natural or environmental information will be under the natural and environmental areas theme. In here, you will need to go to the individual layers. So for example, with Gary Oak, we have two options. You're not able to get a lot of information for some data, and you are able to get a lot of information for other data. So you'll just have to play around with it to see. So for example, with Gary Oak, you'll notice that you are not given the option to drop down a legend like you are with the sensitive ecosystems. So the only information you can get is through the Identify tool. So if you click on your Identify tool and then click on one of the polygons, it will show you, let me see here. If I zoom to it, it will show you some of the information, but it's not very complete. Whereas if you are looking at, for example, the species at risk information that I had shown you earlier. So if you're looking at a rare species and you're looking at a specific ecological community, it will populate quite a lot more information. So for example, you'll be able to see the scientific name, the common name, the occurrence ID, and whether or not it is a red or blue provincially listed species, whether it has a CASAWIC designation or provincial status. So each layer will have different amounts of information available for review, and that's very much based on privacy. And so each layer has a different level of privacy associated with it. So it really will take you to look through each layer that you're interested in to see what type of information you're able to access. Does that answer the question?
Does that answer the question to Emily? Does that answer your question? She should. Yes, it does. Great. Super. Are there any last questions? So what we're going to do after we have this introduction, what I'll be doing is sending you into 4 groups, and Paige and Rana are going to be in one of those groups, and Sarah. And what we can do is we'll have an image of an area that Sarah's pre-organized, and it's 2 maps that she's created, and they're side by side, and they show change over time, and they're specific to watersheds and water courses or some capacity, as well as wildlife corridors. So I'll provide these images to you. Rana, do you have a question?
No, there was just one more question in the chat. I know you said, is there any more questions? But there's one from Ken, another one in the chat. I don't know if you want to.
Oh, Ken says, is there interest or capacity in the CRD to geocorrectly historical maps, geocorrecting, sorry, historical maps to the Atlas? That's for Sarah.
Yes, absolutely. So if we're always looking to improve our mapping, a lot of our data comes from outside sources. And so if we're able to correct them or provide any adjustments, that's a great opportunity.
Great. Are there any other questions before we continue? Okay, great.
Yeah. Sarah, I would say that in our breakout sessions, if we could send people the link to the Community Atlas so that if they would like to have an opportunity to play around with the data layers as they're working in their groups, that would be great.
Perfect. So we'll do that then. I'll provide the link to the CRD Atlas for you to play, and then also the image of the two maps within a specific area. Great. So Paige, you're in one of the groups. So I think what we'll do is if you can include that image in there, and Sarah as well. I'll also float around between the groups and make sure everybody's got the image and the link. So I'll send you to your groups now. I've created new groups. There's fewer groups and more people in each group, so it'll be a bit easier to navigate as well. So here we go. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
This should be, hello. This will be smoother this time. So I'm going to send this to you so everybody can open this separately. And this is the CRD Atlas, so feel free to poke around in there. And then I'm also going to send you an image of a specific area, and you can sort of talk about the area as you like.
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm going to send it as a PDF because I found that that is easier to look at than the PNG file. But if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message as well. And then that should work. Done successfully. Great. Can everybody see that PDF file there?
Yes, it's just opening for me, I think.
Great. Great. So everybody got it there?
Yeah, I've got it open.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to move to the next group. Have fun.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Sarah.
Hi. So here's the this will be much smoother. So here's the CRD Atlas link. You can play around with this, play around with the functions. Oh, I'll just put it in there, everybody. There we go. And then here's your image of an area. And Sarah Forbes has generously created these in advance for us. And this is the Bowker Creek Watershed, which I know Ken is familiar with. And so you can have some fun looking at that map. Again, it's got two different images, one from, I believe, 2013, 2015, and then one more recent. And you can kind of look at the way the land has been changed over time. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message, and I'll give you about 15 minutes to discuss this one. So have some fun.
Oh, goodness.
Sarah's here.
Hi, everybody. So here's the CRD link to the CRD Atlas. And I'll just send this to you here. So what you can do is take a look at this CRD Atlas, explore the functions, and then I'm also going to send you a PDF image of a map that Sarah Forbes has created and within the CRD Atlas. And it's got two images, one historical 2013 satellite imagery of a particular location, Cecilia Creek, and then another image of that was created earlier and has a little bit more information updated on how the land has changed in the last couple of years. And so you can kind of look at these maps and discuss them a little bit, but you'll have to open them on your own screen and then just sort of talk about them in the group. Any questions? All good? Okay, have some fun. Bye. I'll come in about 10 or 15 minutes, come get ya.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, everybody. So here's the CRD Atlas link, which you might already have. Here's the CRD Atlas link. I'll just share this with you here. Oh. Great, and then you can look at that Atlas link, open it up, take a peek. You can kind of poke around in there, look at the different functions. And then I'm also going to send you one of the maps that Sarah's created. And we'll do the Thetis Lake Regional Park. And so this is a really great map. It's got, again, 2 images that Sarah's created side by side. One's a little bit older and has information from 2013 or 2015, and then another one that's got more recent data. And you can kind of look at these maps and see how the land has changed over time and what that might mean for wildlife and water flow across the landscape. So have some fun with that. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message. We'll give you about 10 or 15 minutes to talk through this, and then I'll call you back.
Great. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Oh, here we go.
All I've got is the in chat. The only thing I have is the CRD Atlas. That's it.
Oh, and I'm going to send you the image. Here's an image file.
Oh, thank you.
Perfect. And then see if you can see the image file there for the Wildwood Creek Matheson area.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I don't know where I'm supposed to find that. I can't.
In the
I
chat,
don't get anything at all here.
it's in the chat there at the bottom, Ian. There's a little red icon, and if you click on that, it'll open the chat, and you'll see there's a PDF there, and you can click on that PDF link. Here, I can also email it to you, Ian, if that's easier.
No, I must be doing something wrong here because I don't seem to get anything here. And
You might have to hit the little speech bubble at the bottom of your screen that says chat.
there's nothing at the bottom of my screen at all.
Oh, put your mouse over it and something might pop up.
I'm using an iPad and I can only.
Oh, even worse.
Play with there's just nothing here.
Maybe it's just limited functionality then on the iPad.
I don't know.
Emailed it to you, Ian. So see if you can check your email, and I sent you the PDF outside of the Zoom.
I'll have a look there.
Take a peek there and see if you can see the image.
I noticed on the
Bilston Creek enters Woody's Lagoon, the head of Woody's Lagoon. So it's it's just off of, that's probably Metchosin Road is the big highway that's going through there.
Okay, now I have this. Yeah.
I noticed through it looks like kind of agricultural in that one patch. There's actually a road that's been built through there too.
Yep.
Between the two images.
North of the Metchosin Road there.
Yep. Yeah, north of Metchosin Road, and then even south of it, like actually through the, I guess what was agricultural.
You can see there's some dashed lines over top of Matheson Lake there, which is painted turtle habitat.
Oh.
So
yeah.
And there's a lot of areas on the first map that have sharp-tailed snake critical habitat too. You can see all the orange dashed lines are everywhere. So there's a lot of potential for habitat for sharp-tailed snake there, but also a lot of overlap with development.
Sorry, excuse my ignorance because I've only been in Canada for 18 months. Is sharp-tailed snake particularly rare here?
Yes, sorry, sharp-tailed snake. So any species that Sarah's identified on this map, most of them are rare.
Okay.
Yeah, Douglas fir is really common. Nuttall's quillwort and the butterfly dusky wing and the painted turtle, those are all rare endangered species.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's really neat. It's basically that Sarah's showing that all of these animals, you can find data for all of them on the CRD Atlas. There was no information for either of these maps that she had private access to. So that's kind of the CRD Atlas, is we can make these maps ourselves. She made these, but we could do the exact same thing just by having public access.
That's amazing. That's really cool.
So I'm gonna go pop into another group, but I just wanted to make sure that you guys were doing okay. You're doing great. Yay!
Thanks.
How are you doing?
Good. We're kind of playing around with transparency on some of the layers. I'd shared my screen for a while, and we can slide things back and forth. And yeah, I'm curious of how many people are in Saanich, sort of North Saanich, Central Saanich, or Sydney area. Do anybody in our group, or where
North
people?
Saanich.
Or are you? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Our community mapping class, we partnered with the Saanich Peninsula Environment Coalition, who are coming up with a bioregional plan, a strategy, hoping that as the municipalities now are taxed with coming up with their official community plans, they think more regionally as opposed to in isolation. And I think this mapping workshop is amazing as a tool to bring people together on a lot of those kinds of issues that need to be addressed in our community plans. So
definitely,
I'm going to be after you, Sarah, to get involved with this. I would just love it. It would be so good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
Did you get your map in the end? Your PDF that I was going to send? You didn't get a PDF?
Oh, we did. We did. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. The two maps. We didn't see a time. Is there a time on there? We didn't see a date on the two maps.
Yeah, I think I might have been mixed up because I think Sarah and I were going to timestamp them, but maybe they didn't get timestamped, and instead they showed different features, which is also fine. That's also great. They were just opportunities for people to see really that you can create these maps yourself, and that although there's information on private species at risk, all of this information is publicly available through the CRD, and that we can ourselves create these same maps that Sarah made. And I think it's really it's quite professional looking and professionally done with up-to-date information for the most part. So that was really the purpose around sharing that PDF with you, was just to show you that you can make those. Wow. Yeah.
I like the idea too that, at least if you're working on the same workstation all the time, that you can actually bookmark it and go back to it. I'm kind of curious how that could work.
That was a great question, because I know that has been something that the CRD Atlas wasn't able to do in the past. And so that must be a recent update that they've made. They're also constantly updating it. And it was nice for Sarah to share that if we want to send information to change it or update it, that we can influence, that tool. Which makes you feel like you are influencing government, which is really exciting. Yeah.
So Ken, what was the name of that group that you said you were working with?
The acronym is SPEC, S-P-E-C, Saanich Peninsula Environment Coalition.
Environment Coalition, okay.
Yeah. They've been meeting, Adam Olson was a big one in instigating this, getting it started. Adam Olson.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Bob Pert, I think, sort of heads up as chair of the coalition, but SIPS, Saanich Inlet Protection Society, Sea Change, there are a number of groups that are part of this. I feel strongly that HAT needs to be a part of this as well. I think that would be amazing. And who was it we spoke with? Alyssa, yes. I would love to see that as well. As we look forward to, looking at long-term development, how can we restore wetlands in the heart of the city? That would be an amazing thing to be able to explore on these, on maps like this.
I'm going to go, thanks so much, Ken. I'm going to go back and just check one more group. And then I think we'll bring everybody back together because we've only got a few minutes left. And I really want Ian and Kim to share about their Bilston Creek Watershed project because it's more grassroots in that they've hand drawn everything. And, you know, making sure that we also legitimize hand drawings because they are important and they make it accessible for people to understand the, you know, the landscape in their backyard in a really intimate way and small scale. So, yeah, so I'm gonna leave you and I'll see you in a couple minutes.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Mergers, it's now owned by another American company.
Gotcha. That's pretty typical, I guess, these days.
It's typical in the software. I've been through 2 bios. Anyway, yeah.
Still the same product.
The results, yeah, the results here. This gets you the metadata for the layer, and some of these numbers might be useful, some of them aren't, and you have to ask the owner of the data what these means. Like, for example, lot number and plan number are governmental numbers. Some of the things, if you change over to the 1 meter contour down in the bottom.
Right. I see here.
Yeah, now we've got.
Oh, I just closed it. Crap. Sorry.
Yeah.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Show change layer drawing order. See, that's good to know.
Yeah, that's to put a layer above or below a layer.
Yeah, I often want to do that. Hello, welcome back.
Great. So I think we still got a few more trickling in. How did everybody enjoy that? What'd you think?
That was great.
You have enough time, not enough time?
I think it was good. We probably had more time than we needed, but we had a lot of really well-versed mappers in our group, so that was awesome.
Perfect. Great. Great. So how did that go for everybody? Maybe if one person from each group can report out on maybe something you learned about the CRD Atlas that you didn't know before, or that you made a new friend, anything. we can go popcorn style if one person from each group wants to share. That'd be great. Oh, we can't unmute yourselves. Oh, let me see if I can change that.
Well, while she sorts that out, I'll say a few nice things about our group. So we had just looked at the maps of the Cecilia Creek watershed and just basically noted that it was pretty urban. It didn't look like there was a whole lot of change from what we could see, but just a lot of creeks that looked to be culverts and or ditches, and not a whole lot of sort of natural creek to speak of, except for the small area within Cecilia Creek Park. And so we were looking a little bit closer at that on the atlas itself, just taking a look at the slope of the park, and then just got into kind of a conversation about that. And it was nice from what Sarah Forbes showed us about how to view the data sort of down across the bottom of the screen when you're identifying features with that identifying tool, to be able to show the data differently. Edmund in our group showed us a bit more about that and as well. So yeah, it was lovely. And I found it pretty easy to use. All right.
Great. And I've allowed you all to unmute yourselves if you would like. So feel free to popcorn style from here if you feel comfortable.
As a complete novice to this, I'm glad it's recorded because I'll be happy to go back to it and absorb where my mistakes are and what I couldn't do and learn to use some of these tools. Thank you.
Thanks, Rosemary. That's great.
As an aside, it would have been interesting to know exactly who's in here because I recognize some faces from my area, like Priska and David, and it would be nice to perhaps chat with them or at least be able to exchange ideas when we meet in this COVID situation.
Yeah, we can round robin next time. Sorry.
No, it's all good. I think, yeah, that's such a good idea. And maybe at the end, we'll have a few minutes for folks that are interested. We can just, you know, have sort of like more of a discussion. If you want to go into a breakout room, we can help with that too and just have a chat. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Great.
Okay.
So I used the time in the breakout room actually to explore the CRD Atlas for myself because I wanted to see what I find the different features, and I got somewhere. So that was very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. I hadn't played with the tools being able to add information to it. So I'm really curious to kind of exploring that. And I guess in our group too, we kind of played around with sliders that you can play with the transparency, which was really helpful. And yeah, I am curious, and I wonder if Sarah, if you could give an idea. I'm wondering how large a map one could save. I do a lot of community mapping, and we use maps that are maybe 4 by 6 feet in size, and love the quality of the air photo imagery on there, and would love to be able to produce that. But that files could be daunting, I would imagine.
That's what I was going to say. Is unfortunately through the community atlas, that imagery is very coarse in that if you were trying to print it at a large scale, it would not print very nicely. And so I think the largest you can currently print at and still have that high quality information is around 11 by 17.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's one of the limitations, is that it's designed much more as like an interactive tool. And being able to print and export that information is challenging if you're looking at that much larger level. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we could chat too about working together with CRD to produce some maps that are through, HAT or what have you, to get funding in that department. And then we've had in the past some luck working directly with CRD and getting some larger files prepped so they can be printed. So we can always keep the conversation going because there's such valuable pieces.
Absolutely, yeah.
Great. And we can take one more question or comment, and then we're going to move on. And Ian is going to share a little bit about the Bilston Creek watershed projects. How you feeling? Yeah, we only have a few more minutes, so we don't want to go over too much, but we might go over a little bit if that's okay. Any other questions? Nope, we're good. Okay, so what we'll do now is I'm going to share my screen. And Ian, maybe if you just want to sort of share about how you came to the Bilston Creek Protection Association, Watershed Association, and maybe a little bit about the maps that you and Dale and Kim have worked on for the brochures over the years. And I'm going to share my screen here, and everybody can see this. Can you see this okay?
Looks great to me.
Good. Okay. And so Ian,
I can see it, but it looks a little blurry.
A little blurry. Okay.
Mine's slowly getting to better resolution as it
Oh,
just.
okay. Yeah. So is mine. Sorry.
Okay. No worries. Yeah. Thanks
It's like not. I'm not like supposed to be able to see that fine print though, right?
No, afraid not.
Okay. So Ian, if you want to, can you see this, Ian, the brochure?
How about that? Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's great, Ian.
Okay. Yeah, you've got, it's the other side of the brochure has the actual map on it. That's the, there we are, yeah. So it's a map that's kind of evolved over a number of years. And we've tried to put in our major projects that we've done on the stream in there. There's one area actually that we're working on right recently is up in the upper left-hand corner. There's an image on the stream of somebody planting a tree and fish with a baby bottle. It's a spawning area that we worked on quite a bit a number of years ago, and it's getting quite grown up now with a lot of trees and shrubs and other plants that we put there. And just recently we've been working on doing some cleanup. Being right beside the highway tends to collect an awful lot of plastic and bits of junk that fly off of cars and other things that I'm not quite sure how someone would notice or not notice that a tire had flown off their car and was landed in the ditch there. but it's a really interesting kind of project that we've done there, and so far we've seen a lot more fish in that local area. But it's being impacted by development that's going on. There's a large clear cut actually in the forest right in that area. And it's proposed to be a commercial industrial area and some residential. And it's getting changed an awful lot, and the whole stream is getting changed. It's being, well, I guess what you would call urbanized in many areas. And development, I think, is having a very detrimental effect on quite a bit of the stream. and it's challenging to work in it. And it's been really interesting to work there. We've just gotten access to an underwater camera, and we're going to be trying to do more inventory of just how many fish are in the creek with the camera, rather than trying to electroshock fish, which is not a very good system actually. And it's been interesting using the camera and going through some of the pools and places and just seeing from the fish's perspective just what's down there. It's really interesting. So we're going to be working with that in the next few months to try and get an idea of fish which will be hatching out probably in February, March is usually when they would hatch. So that's kind of interesting at the time. I actually got involved in this quite a few years ago with some projects that were going on nearby here, and just seem to have been involved with it ever since. It's fascinating. We've done a lot of work to improve the stream flow, to get more plants and shade, and building the gravel spawning areas we've done, and it's quite, I don't know, you feel as though you get a lot of improvement done, and meet an awful lot of the neighbors doing it. It's really interesting. It's yeah.
How did you make this map, Ian? How did you and Ian, and Dale and Kim go about making it?
Well, I think actually Kim was more involved with Dale. I wasn't that closely involved with actually making the map, but Dale has a real good knack for making these little characters and the types of artwork he does. And I think we sort of talked a lot about, what it should be on there, what we would base the map on to begin with, and to give it a little bit of a sort of a 3D perspective to show where everything goes. But, you can't do a real sort of to-scale kind of map. You got to try and put stuff in there, but it gives a good feeling of when, say, you're walking along the Galloping Goose, and it follows it crosses the Bilston Creek in quite a few places, and you can get I think a pretty good feel of what is around you and where the stream comes from and going to, and all that sort of stuff. And Dale seems to be able to draw out to make it look like you really get a good feeling for it. It's been a really nice project, actually. It needs some updating, of course. It's things have changed over time, but basically it's really nice.
Yeah, it's really well done. I want to share as well your other brochures, Ian, because I think they're just so well done, and they really help support the map too. And it might be something that people, if they they create a map similar to the other one that you and Dale and Kim worked on that we just showed, if they want to provide a bit more info about their watershed or something like that, I thought it'd be great to just spend this little bit more time just talking about this one last brochure that you've created. It's just such a great resource.
It's a really nice brochure. The whole theme, just don't do anything. Don't let stuff go in the creek and all that kind of thing. It's surprising how people don't think about that when they're doing anything. It's instead of cutting down the trees on the edge of the stream, just leave it alone. Leave the stuff alone. Don't do things like that. But at the same time, we do need to be aware of pollution that's getting in there, stuff that goes into the stream, and that it's so it's a nice brochure, and yeah, it's Again, it's one we've had for quite a while, actually.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, and I think really accessible for people too. And then we've got this other side, which is also sort of like a map. And I really like this back side of the brochure because you've got, you know, the imagery and the artwork similar to the community green maps that Ken Josephson, who's with us today, works on as well, and includes a lot of local flora and fauna. I think this is also a great way to show the way another way a map can be done to educate the community about a watershed.
Yeah, it's really nice that they've got that there's a lot of details been included in it, and it's sort of explains the basics of what you might find there, and you may not think about that at all when you're wandering along a trail by the stream. You quite often might not think of all the stuff that's there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Amanda, is it Amanda? Well, there's been a few questions about wanting to see this brochure available online. Ian, I know you had a few of the files shared on your own website, but we'll put it in an email that will go out to all the participants after this with these scanned versions of your amazing brochures. And then I've actually seen hard copies at the Metchosin Municipal Hall. They had some on display of the Bilston Watershed, and that's where I picked up this one. So yeah, we've been chatting with Ian a bit more about bringing these, you know, reviving these amazing brochures in some shape or form. So you might see them, you know, distributed out into the world even more so. But yes, they exist, and we'll share them with everybody.
It would be nice to be able to do some more sort of public displays like we used to do in the West Shore Mall and that sort of thing, and be able to hand them out. But it seems that we're not doing that. Maybe next year.
Maybe next year. Yeah, we've been doing just mailing things to people's houses because that seems to be the only way to do it. But hopefully soon. Yeah, for sure. So Sarah's gonna thank you so much, Ian. Is there anything else you wanted to share for now?
The only thing I sort of think of is we are doing sort of some work on the stream all the time. We're actually involved in some cleanup and picking up trash and stuff like that in areas all the way along the stream. One thing I have noticed actually with pollution getting into the stream is it seems that around here every second Monday is recycling day, and invariably it'll be windy and stuff blows out of people's recycling bins and ends up in the stream and stuff like that. So it's there are some challenges that you don't even think about that come along, but we will be doing a number of sort of organized days of cleaning up certain areas of the stream over the next few months. We'll be working on that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ian. And if you're interested in volunteering with the group or just learning more from Ian, we'll get you in touch with him as well through the Bilston Creek Stewards. Okay, Sarah, do you wanna wrap it up here?
Yeah, so we'll just wrap it up with one last thing to say, thank you so much to everybody who's participated in this. We want to just send you one more link. If you've got a second, if you have time, Rana will pop that Google Docs or Google slide link in there, and we'll do one more sticky note question, which is just how could you apply your new mapping knowledge that you've learned today, or stewardship knowledge, to a project that you're working on. And if you have the moment, just feel free. We'll put that link in the chat there, and sort of add some thoughts.
Oh, I see there's a question from Warren about how to access Indigenous mapping names, and I'm guessing he means sort of Senchothan or Lekwungen or other Indigenous community place names. We mentioned the Saltwater People book, and I think Rana shared a link to that, but we'll add that to the list. And then there's a few other Senchothan language, place names, resources that are online that I know Ken knows lots about, and we'll add those to their resources email as well. So I think, Sarah, you've got, do you want to share the sticky notes thing? Oh, we've got one person. That's exciting. Oh, and Rana just shared caretakers. Oh, she shared the Google Doc. Awesome. So we wanted to get folks to, provide a little bit of info about how they want to utilize that, but also in that link that Rana provided is the habitat stewardship commitment. So what we were hoping is, thinking about how to utilize your mapping knowledge and perhaps make one commitment that would be an act of kindness or stewardship for nature and in the next month. And so what we're going to do is have that up on the presentation, and if you're willing, we'd love to have you sign your name and provide one goal that you hope to accomplish in the next month, even if it's learn one place name of in the Senchothan language, or learn which watershed that you live in, whatever it might be. That would be a fun goal to set for yourself. And if you have any other ideas, you can, let us know. We really appreciate your patience today. So this is the first sort of technical workshop we've offered. So we would love to get your feedback.